Just now, we have huge breaking 2A news. This is great, and it involves, shocker, and trust me, this surprises me too, the ATF actually doing something really good. Please do stick with me, and I'm gonna get into everything in just a second. But the key point behind all of this isn't what actually happened itself. It is significant, it is really good, but it isn't just that. The most impactful point of all of this is that it shows the ATF is now starting to think about firearms differently. Now starting to think about the Second Amendment differently, and that is nothing but amazing. If you are new here though, please do subscribe down below. I really appreciate all the support so far, and yeah, let's get into it. The ATF has repealed the CLEO notification requirement as part of the NFA. This is really important. CLEO stands for Chief Law Enforcement Officer, and how it worked before 2016, by the way, this worked differently, but how it's worked since 2016 is if you are trying to apply for an NFA item to be able to possess an NFA item, so that's short barrel rifles, machine guns, suppressors, any other weapon, AOW, anything like that, you are required to notify your chief law enforcement officer of your area. And essentially what this meant was, if you filed your NFA application, which many people have done, and you paid your tax and everything like that, you are required to send a copy of that application to your chief law enforcement officer, effectively creating a registry of gun owners and what they had. This was a really big problem. As you probably know, Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice have, over the last couple weeks, been under fire for what many gun organizations consider to be them trying to create a gun registry. So under a couple cases that have come out recently, when the injunction has been granted in favor of the Second Amendment, in favor of these pro-gun organizations, they've requested the membership list of these gun organizations. Very problematic for a number of reasons, but there's a couple reasons why they've done that. I'm not gonna get into all that now. What I am gonna say is, this points to something really significant, and this gives us insight into why they might have done all of those other things. The reason this is so significant, and the key point behind all of this that is so important, is that this shows the Pam Bondi Department of Justice and the ATF are beginning to think about the Second Amendment differently. There simply wasn't the public pressure in this issue as there have been in others. So what this shows is they have been proactively and of their own accord going back and looking at regulations to decide where they can curb some of these easily and give us easy 2A wins. I know this is not necessarily the best case scenario. If I was in charge, I would repeal the NFA. I'm not in charge, right? Obviously I'm not in charge, but that's a significantly more complex and difficult thing to do. In fact, it would require Congress. What this does show though, is that temperamentally, they are trying to hand us easy 2A wins. And I think that's why this is so significant. The actual CLEO notification thing, of course I'm not undermining the importance of it, but it isn't as important as this key principle. Pam Bondi, as Attorney General of Florida, absolutely, unequivocally did support things that I, as a principal 2A advocate, would never advocate for and never support. She supported open carry bans, right? She supported the ability for you to open carry in public. She supported 18 to 20-year-old handgun bans, really bad. She supported, probably worst of all, red flag laws, which lets the government ostensibly confiscate your guns without due process and without the right for you to face your accuser and everything like that. I can't defend that, that's just bad. But this does show that they have begun to shift. And I don't think you can underestimate that. This shows that the Trump administration is actively looking to hand us those easy 2A wins. And if they continue down this line, there's a lot of things they can do. They haven't been perfect. I'm not going to deny that. And the last few weeks have absolutely shown us that fact. But the reality is, this is an unbelievably positive development. Even just thinking about this simply and logically, the CLEO notification rule made no sense. The chief law enforcement officer, up until prior to 2016, they did have veto power. But since 2016, the CLEO law enforcement officer did not have the power to veto anything. Even if they didn't want you to be able to possess it, it wasn't their decision. The only purpose it served was to create a de facto gun registry. A registry where law enforcement could look and say, I know this person has this thing, I know this person has this thing, I know this person has this thing. Or at least that they've applied for them. This is very bad. Gun registries are extremely dangerous. Gun registries subvert the entire idea behind the Second Amendment, at least as far as protection from tyranny is concerned. Of course, if I'm a hunter, it doesn't really matter. But if I'm a principled 2A advocate that wants to possess a gun, not least, of course, for self-defense, but also to protect themselves against the future possibility of tyranny, well, if the government knows I have it, it's very easy for them to round up all the gun owners and take all of our guns. This is extremely dangerous, and eliminating the CLEO requirement is actually a big step to reverting this paradigm. It is true, you still have to go through all the normal ATF processes in order to obtain an NFA item. Absolutely true, you have to pay the tax, everything like that, exactly the same. But what this has done is this has simplified the process, first of all, and it's eliminated that risk. There's a lot more they can do here, but I want to say Unequivocally, this is a positive development. So what do we need to do next? I think the answer is pretty obvious. We need to gut the NFA in its entirety. The NFA is an insane piece of legislation. It's so crazy. The NFA makes no logical sense. I can have a handgun that's this long, but if I go here, fine, illegal, fine. It doesn't make any sense. It's the most illogical piece of legislation probably ever been written. It's wild. Think about like some of the things that it protects, right? So you have SBRs, shot-off shotguns, suppressors. Okay, suppressors, first of all. What are we talking about? Why would that be something that the government has any business in regulating? It's essentially just hearing protection, right? It's not like there's like a terrorist all of a sudden who throws a suppressor on the end of a gun and now he can blow up New York City. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something that is the most lawfully used item you can think of. There's almost no illegal application for a suppressor. It's absolutely unreal. For any of those things, you have to pay a $200 tax, but that's not even the biggest issue. Still, $200 tax, insane, of course, but you have to file this paperwork and wait months. It's an untenable piece of legislation, and we need to gut it in its entirety, and that is doable too. The NFA is an unbelievably outdated piece of legislation. It's from like 1934, and then later on they added to it. Like in 1986, they added the inability for normal civilians to buy machine guns, right? Obviously with asterisks, but essentially that's what happened in 1986. So this is something that came from the era of like Tommy guns, prohibition. It's an unbelievably outdated piece of legislation, and honestly, it needs to be done away with in its entirety. The era when the NFA was implemented was rife, completely rife, with constitutional infringements. The NFA is an example of that. It's, to some degree, one of the last holdovers, of that era. And it is very clear. It poses no public safety benefit, and even if it didn't, it clearly infringes our constitutional rights, and we need to get rid of it. Now, do I think Pam Bondi's going to do this? Unfortunately, no. I don't think there is appetite, at least in this current political environment, for the NFA to be repealed or challenged in court by Pam Bondi. I just don't think it will be, unfortunately. Do I think it should be? 100%, but I don't think it will be. At the very minimum, though, today we've seen there can be small incremental, and I agree it's incremental, but serious positive changes towards the protection of our rights. And that's not something we should just throw away. In previous administrations, we had small incremental changes the other way, and now they're in our favor. And if we can stack these, maybe one day we'll get to a future where the NFA is no more. If you disagree or have any other thoughts, please do leave them down in the comments below. I really appreciate you. If you did enjoy the video though, please do subscribe down below if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.